Hi, this is my third video, and hopefully you've seen my first two. One before the operation and the second one after the operation. I'm now actually starting week 2, and this time last week I was actually in theatre, actually having my operation, and things have progressed a hell of a lot in the past week. Yeah, things are really going exceptionally well, and it still seems very much a dream as to how good things are going. First thing I want to talk about is pain and the different types of pain. Before the operation, the pain I experienced is very draining, and it didn't half drag me down in terms of enthusiasm, and also my personality as well was affected, and just in general I was always on a downer and just constantly in pain. Now the pain is nowhere near that, and it's minuscule compared to that, but it's quite a bearable pain, and very different pain from the hip. It just feels a little bit more like a tight muscle now, perhaps a little like a dead leg you get from playing football, and it doesn't really stop me doing any of the exercises that I'm required to do and I need to do to get myself progressing and recovering. I also suppose subconsciously I know that I'm on the mend now rather than my hip deteriorating, so that's quite welcome. And the old adage of no pain, no gain is quite true in this case as well. Linked to the pain is of course medication, and medication given during the operation, during actually the procedure, and after the operation. In earlier videos, one of the earlier videos, I mentioned the surgeon actually administering less anaesthetic into the joint during the surgery. And I've only seen this once on a YouTube video when I was researching it, and they do actually inject some anaesthetic into the area around the hip joint. According to the physio, this wears off after a few days of the operation, probably 2 or 3 days. But if you don't take your medication, what she said it can actually hit you like a train. So I would say take your meds. In terms of medication, do they give you some medication? What I've done, I'll just go through them in no particular order. I got paracetamol, I got ibuprofen, I got tablets to stop the ibuprofen upsetting your stomach. I got one called Oxycontin, which is a small morphine-based tablet that's a slow release one that works over a sort of 12-hour period. I got some tablets just in case I need to take the pain down substantially, but I've not used those. I got some sachets for constipation, as the amount of tablets etc. can affect that. I also got some Senna tablets to help with constipation, just in case the sachets don't work. And finally, I got quite a few self-administered injections that I need to do for blood thinning as well. And not really medication, but those nice sexy DVT socks that they give you to make sure you don't get blood clots, etc, etc. So what a lot of medication. Keeping track of it can be quite a challenge actually as well. So and I would assume most people, when they have this type of procedure, they get a whole raft of medication just like I've done. But I just thought I'd list them out just to give you some sort of indication. In terms of keeping track of it, I actually found doing an A4 sheet of paper split into 1 hour intervals and writing on that sheet of paper all the medication and when it was due. It's just easier to track and administer and make sure obviously that I don't take too much, but make sure I do take the right medication when I need to. With the self injections for the blood thinning, I think you'll either be able to do these or you won't be able to do these. My thought process was there's thousands of people around the world daily taking injections for insulin or whatever, and I just thought, don't think about it, just get on with it. It's you need it, and that's what I've actually done, and I found it quite easily. The bit that I really do like as I probably alluded to on some of the other videos, is exercising. So when you're coming out of the hospital, the physio gives you a set of basic exercises to do. And I've added a small section at the end of this video showing myself doing those exercises and what they entail, to give you an idea. But I would say keep it structured, but you will need to adjust, and I'll say this a few times during this video, you'll need to adjust it depending how your body is feeling and how you are recovering. Tiredness is a thing you really don't appreciate once you've had your operation, and you will be tired, and you will feel the effect of the operation, the recovery and the exercise. So, you know, take note of that. Walking. One thing I learned quite on, my advice with this is, if you're doing the same sort of distance daily, whether it be 100 yards, 400 yards, whatever, fine, get on with that. But if you're starting to push the envelope and go longer and longer, what I would advise is wait till you have somebody with you to do that, just for comfort and safety as well. Build up slowly. I started off by doing 3 walks a day, 8 AM, lunchtime, and in the evening around 6 or 7 PM in the evening. I found it quite good to go and do an early one, 8 AM. But what I did find actually, while I was still recovering early on, and probably due to the medication and only just getting up out of bed in effect, my body hadn't really woken up, and I really did feel tired, even back from a short walk, and certainly the longer ones, half a mile or so, did leave me quite tired. And it did take me a little bit of time to get my head round this. You know, why was I feeling so washed out after only walking a short distance? The thing to remember with this is it's still very soon after your operation, and I was in this case in week 1. Don't do too much too soon. And I think in my eagerness to get going, I perhaps did a little bit too much in the mornings, so I adjusted that as I went on. One thing that was a bit unnerving at one point, but it wasn't a problem, is that I did actually feel like almost like a gushing feeling down the side of my leg, like a warm feeling, and it did unnerve me a little bit in the middle of one of my longer walks when I was on my own. And that's why I give the advice of go with somebody if you go pushing out the distance a little bit. Sleep. Oh, now I can manage to sleep, and I can actually sleep on my back as well. And most people probably will have to do this anyway because of if they have the normal procedures. But again, because I've had the anterior one, I can sleep on either side on my back. Obviously, it's a little bit tender sleeping on the side where the incision's been done. But I think a lot of the improved sleep is down to the pelvis being in the correct position now, and my leg also being able to sit within the pelvis in the correct position. But I'm definitely sleeping a lot much better now than before the operation. And again, because I've had the anterior one, I can sleep whichever side I want. Another really good bit of advice is take an afternoon nap, and they do advise this as well. It does put energy back in the tank for later in the day. You do start to feel a little bit fatigued as the day goes along. I normally do this around 2 to 4 PM for a couple of hours. Might not be a full sleep, but I like to have a nice little snooze. I do feel a little bit grotty sometimes when I've woke up and washed out, but the sleep, certainly in the afternoon, is a definite good thing. Food's an interesting one, and I've only just come on to this past few days because I'm starting to walk a little bit further, and it's probably due to the amount of calories that my body's consuming while it's healing itself, and also as I'm walking a little bit more. And I'm finding I need to eat a little bit more as well. One of my traits, if you will, is if I don't eat enough, even before my operation, I can feel a little bit queasy and a little bit grotty as well. And if I don't get enough food, then it just makes me feel a little bit sickly. So what I've noticed is with this, I get a little bit more after the operation. So as a result, I'm eating small snacks between meals, bananas, apples, etc., just to keep my energy levels topped up. And along with that, I'm also trying to drink more water to keep hydrated. summing it up, things are going absolutely brilliantly. I couldn't ask for more. Like I said, I'm now starting week 2, and I'm almost to the point, although I'm walking with one crutch, I'm almost to the point where I can start to, tentatively take steps without the crutches, and I'm expecting this week as well to progress very well. And I need to remember also I'm 52, I'm not 22. I do sound a little bit like my dad now, but it's sound advice. You do need to listen to your body. It does take it out of you when you're recovering from this and you're trying to do the exercise or you're trying to walk. It really does take it out of you. So my next video will be more on the exercising beyond the basic ones they give you, and how I'm building up the area around my hip to eventually lead me to running, etc., etc., which is all what I want to do. In terms of medication, well, I'm actually on my last day of my medication, so we'll see what the discomfort feels like now once they've worn off, probably in about 2 or 3 days after taking my medication. So hopefully, if you like the video, remember to share it and also give it a big thumbs up as well. Okay, so this is the physio sheet you get when you leave the hospital with the basic exercises on for your hip. Typically these will be done in your bed when you're in the hospital and at home to start with, because your mobility. I'm quite good actually because I've had this anterior approach, but I'm actually doing them in my conservatory today, which is doubles up of my rehab room stroke gym, where I've got some equipment, etc., etc., that'll help me do the stuff. So the first one basically is to work on pushing your leg to the sheet or floor in this case, to strengthen up your quads. The next one works on the hip flexor. The next one after that is working on your quads again to build your quads up, and the next one, abduction of the leg. What is important, if you do have a nice slippy surface, to allow your leg to move quite freely without the resistance of a bed sheet or a carpet or something like that. So I'll run through this first of all. So all I'm doing with this one basically is pulling back my toes, and my right leg's the one that I've done. So basically for 10 times I'm going to push my leg down into the floor. I can actually feel tightness in my psoas and my groin area and on the hip flexor, but I'm basically pushing it down, holding for about 5 seconds and relax. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That I can feel a little bit of tightness, like I say, in the groin area and on the hip flexor. So the next one is basically to work on the hip flexor, and again with the people who haven't had the anterior, you've got to keep your leg at, you can't go past 90 degrees, but I'm alright because I don't have restrictions. So again it's going to be 10 with working on this. So basically the leg is up, and what I couldn't do before is when I did this before I had my operation, my leg typically would drop out to the side because the restricted movement of my hip. With this I'm able to bring my leg sort of pretty much straight back up. So basically hold for a short period, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is actually day 5, I think it is, after my operation, day 6. But that, when I first did that straight after, it was very difficult to do, but now it's getting easier as time goes by. So the next one, I've actually got a foam roller. You can use a rolled up towel to put on your leg. You'll also possibly start to see some of the bruising on my leg that's coming out because of the operation and the work they do actually on the hips, so that will go up some period of time. So again, 10 reps with a pause at the top for your quad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Again, they've never been really difficult, but that's again just building your quads up nice and easily. So the next one is typical difficult, where you're doing an abduction. Certainly I found that very, very difficult on the bed. Should be quite easy on the floor, and again 10 reps of this one again. So basically nice and simple. What is important is trying to keep your foot vertical and let it tip out to the side if possible. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's been relatively easy today. Again, with the exercise program, typically you do it in morning, lunchtime, and in evening. I think it does really contribute to the walking, and it sort of loosens the hip up a little bit to allow it to be more flexible, and it does benefit as well. So that's the basic exercises that you continue to go through, given to you by the physios. Okay, so this is the booklet they typically give you before your hip operation and after you and your hip replacement, provided by the NHS. And there's a section in the side that basically covers strength and exercise, so it's actually got the basic exercise in that I did earlier, but also there's a second set of exercises that are typically of a progression of the basic ones. And typically when I spoke to the physios, they'd say you would normally do that once you've had your dressing off or at the end of the week too, but I've been progressing that well that I'm able to do these exercises now. I had my operation done on Monday, I'm now on Sunday, but what I did find is even trying these right early in the week, say Tuesday, they were a little bit difficult, but I could still do them to some effect. But you know, I'll go through these now. So the first one they have you doing again is an abduction one. So basically your weight's there, you're holding on just for support, and you are in effect taking out your leg to the side, keeping it straight as possible. 1, 2, and again I can feel this in my groin area and my hip flexor. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now a variation on this that I have from a guy who does a running website called James Dunn, and he does a website which is quite useful for runners. kinetic revolution, and the variation on this is actually do a little bit like a clock face, where you've got sort of 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So basically you're coming out at angles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then a little bit down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the last one straight back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I can definitely feel those in my groin and my hip flexor area, and also slight on my back of my glutes as well. So but that's good, that's working. The other one that is very difficult to do, again working the hip flexor, is a basic simplistic knee lift. So again, just going for 10, and I'm unrestricted in terms of with this. The people who are on the restrictions obviously can't go past the 90 degrees. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now the next progression with these, what I plan to do, I have some resistance bands that I can put around my ankles. So the different colours are different resistances. So I'll be able to do these exercises, but with an added resistance to work on my glutes more, because it's important to have your glutes firing to make sure it stabilises your hip. And the problem I was having before with my hip replacement is that because of the restricted movement of my hip, I couldn't get my glute muscles to fire properly, because I couldn't get the full range of motion, so I couldn't actually get my muscles to work. Now I've got less restriction in terms of the joint, I can now fire the muscles, which can then help stabilise the hip. So those are the sort of the second set of exercises you do typically from week 2 onwards.